Hello and welcome to Mr. Basile Explains Legend. I am going to be explaining Legend. I'm going to start on chapter 16 because I've already explained chapters 1 through 15 in class. Now, when I say explain, really what I mean is I'm just going to touch on some of the basic elements that are most important in the chapters. And I will use the text to refer to, page numbers and, the important areas that are going on in the text. So without further ado, we're going to try and dig into this thing a little bit, okay? So on page 169, chapter 16, we see he wanted to add long life and happiness, but he knew their destination. So, it just adds to that overall mood, right? The mood in this text is very much that one of despair, of the loss of hope, which is interesting because so much about this is lost causes, hopeless causes, things like this, right? And yet everybody's going to do it because it's the right thing to do. All right, I'll try not to pontificate too much because I'm realizing that I should try to get through this as quickly as possible since your time is valuable. So Serpeter cantered alongside him as they entered the first of the deep woods beyond the town, right? And then down here, right, there's this sense of, talks about old evil. Vintar believes it to be a demon summoned by Nosta Khan. He is the head shaman to Ulrich's Wolf's Head tribe, and therefore lord of all Nader shaman, or shaman. He is old, and it is said he first served under Ulrich's great-grandfather. He is a man steeped in evil, right? And his powers are greater than yours? Individually? Yes. Collectively? I don't think so. So that's the real power of the 30 is they act as 30 individuals and yet they can act as one, right? Because they have one mind, one thought, one goal. And that's one of the things that you see throughout this text is the power of teamwork, the power of coming together to fight against what would be an overawing power or invincible force, that if you band enough people together who maybe aren't as individually stronger than something, you can overcome even the most massive of odds, right? Or at least you stand against the most massive of odds in spite of those odds. And it's not because you believe you can win. That the belief in winning doesn't matter. It's the belief in doing what's right, which is matters most, right? And I think this is one of the most beautiful moments that really sort of encapsulates what another one of these items the book is talking about. That night they camped by a mountain stream, but lit no fires. In the early evening, Vintar recited poetry, his voice soft and melodious, his words evocative. They are his own work, Serpeter whispered, though he will not own to them. I know not why. He is a fine poet, but they are so sad, she said. All beauty is sad, replied the albino, for it fades. Trust me, beauty fades. Not saying I had beauty, but if I did, it's clearly faded at this point. But really, I mean, it fades, right? All beauty is sad. All life is sad because it fades, right? The mortality we are faced with is a reality, inescapable, right? And let's continue on here. Thank you, is Serpeter still traveling? He should not be. I will seek him, right? And then panic, right? Because they almost lose Serpeter, right? And just the swift action that they take here on page 173 really drives home just how trained and practiced the 30 are. Just they're truly incredible. The mists are explained here, right? It's almost like a multiverse. There are all these different directions that the future can take, and they're able to walk along each path. Although the further they walk, the harder it is to retrace your steps and get back, right? There's no breadcrumb trail like Hansel and Gretel, right? Or if there was, it's been eaten by the by the animals. So there's no way, it's not easy getting back, right? Over on 176, I know the dross cannot hold, and I therefore rescind my order that you fight to the last. This is absurd, right? But perhaps the years have told more heavily upon me than I realized, for my wisdom has been lacking in my dealings with Ulrich. Yeah, no kidding, right? These orders can't be followed. You can't order somebody to fight to the last and then tell them, you know what, just it's pointless. And it goes against the grain of everything this book has been driving home to us, right? That we don't give up in the face of insurmountable. We fight the good fight, even if we know we are guaranteed to lose, because the motives are pure, right? The tensions begin to rise here quite a bit between Vire and Rek. I mean, they've always had a very passionate relationship from the get-go, right? They grate against each other a bit, but that's also part of the strength of their relationship too, is they grate against each other, but they see past all that grating, they see past all fighting, and they just stay together anyway, because they realize that their little spats and fights are nothing compared to their affection for one another and their connection to one another. We're on 179. There was more, was there not, said Vintar. Aye, but some tragedies are best left unspoken, right? And that's more foreshadowing, right? Not that there's been any shortage of awful foreshadowing throughout this text anyway. Slowly they advanced, grins splitting their dark bearded features. Rek grinned back, right? And the 30 fight here, they are amazing when they fight, right? It's exciting. It's good stuff. It's really well described in here too. And then over here, excuse me, been a long day. All battles, as they knew, followed the same pattern: fight and win, fight and die, or fight and run. There was no other way, but the tall one's words were spoken with power, and his voice held them momentarily, right? And so Rek is able to force this one-on-one battle in a position where he wouldn't be able to force such a thing, right? And when the blade snaps, he says, your life is worth more than a broken blade. We prove nothing by this contest, save that we are men. Before me, I have nothing but enemies and war, right? And he's basically saying, there's no point. I'm a dead man anyway, right? Why do you ride to your death? Because I must, right? Because I must, he says. And we find out that, hey, if his blade had snapped, he would have killed him. So much for, that's a kind of a rough friendship. All right. Now, over here, we get this, right? I have seen worse, and I like the cold. It's like pain. It tells you you're alive, right? You have to revel in all of life's moments, right? All of the experiences you have in life are there to let you know that you're alive. And if you don't take the opportunity to be alive, you're not living. So, and indeed, time, worn out by time, the enemy that never tired, right? And we've said this many times, time waits for no man, right? Time, the insurmountable terror, right? And then he goes on to talk about how, of course you have, but he goes on to say, of course you have, but you could survive this battle and come down with the plague, or be killed by a lion, or develop a cancer, which is what, incidentally, Gemmell thought was going on with him, right? You could be robbed and killed, or fall from a horse. Ultimately, you will die anyway. Everyone dies. I'm not saying you should give up. and just open your arms to welcome it. You must fight it all the way. You must fight it all the way. An old soldier, a good friend of mine, told me early in my life that he who fears to lose will never win. And it's true, right? Let me get this description about what a berserk is, which is a berserker, right? And that they are so focused on offense that they don't care about losing. They don't think about losing, right? And so anybody who's worried about losing that faces a berserker is going to die. They may, if they're lucky, kill the berserker, but they're going to die at the same time because the berserker eschews all defense, right? And then Druss, he says, like, why did you come here, Druss? He meant to ask the axeman had chosen to interrupt it, meaning to ask why he had chosen to interrupt him, right? It's like this skit that I watched one time where he's like, why do you think we're here? And he's like, that's a good question. Like, is there a God of being out there? Is there a point to all this? Sometimes. And he goes on, and then his friend goes, no, I meant, why are we here in this canyon where nobody else is? This is even pointless to you? What was all that stuff about God and purpose? Nothing. Right? It's so absurd. And he means to ask him this, but then he gets a much deeper, much more meaningful answer than he had bargained for, right? And he says, I came to die, he said softly, warming his hands and staring into the coals, to find some spot on the battlements to make a stand and then to die. I didn't expect to have to take over the damn defense. A pox on it. I'm a soldier, not a general, right? I mean, he gets more than he had bargained for, right? And he goes on to say, right, I love to fight. He knew, but he had the good, right? Here, I'm going to see if I can zoom in on this. Maybe that'll make looking at this a little easier. It seems silly. Maybe if I just come closer to the text, maybe it won't go in and out of focus so often. Maybe that's better. Right? So, I love to fight. Right? No, but it must make you feel proud, said the lad, uncertain, right? And he goes, it makes you tired. It saps your strength. Like, this is what it means to be a legend, right? You're invulnerable, invincible. You laugh at pain. You march forever. With one blow, you can topple mountains. Do I look as though I can topple mountains? Yes. Well, I damn well can. I'm an old man with a weak knee and an arthritic back. My eyes are not so good as they were either. Right? And he goes on and on. He's like, and he talks about, he beat people that should have beaten him, but they knew who he was and they were afraid of the legend, right? And sometimes it's tough to be honest with yourself about these and have this sort of reflection, but Druss is very, very honest with himself, right? And then Gilad is nicely honest with him. I don't know, I'm a farmer. Don't want to hedge with me, boy. I asked for an opinion. No, you're probably not, but you are a great warrior. I suppose in years gone by you would have been a war chief. I can't tell. You've done wonders with trainers. There's a new spirit at the Dross, right? It says, but the enemies of this fortress are not the same. Morale, preparation, fire gullies, supplies, liaison, organization, saps the soul, right? It's the bureaucratic crap that Druss can't stand. And I'll tell you what, I understand. I'm there, right there with him. I can't stand doing paperwork. It's brutal. All right. And then he tells him, right? I don't expect you to repeat it. He was in the pay of the Nader and he led the assassins, right? So he finds out this, right? And he just can't even believe, like, you stood against 5 of them and you survived, right? Come on, it's Druss the Legend. Of course he survived, right? And we read how the whole thing shook out, so we're familiar with it. All right, remember, we're on page 188 right here. Do you think I want this responsibility? Right? We are forced into doing what we fear. You will take over as of tomorrow. Why? Why me? Because I've watched you and I think you have a talent for leadership. You asked me leading your 10 and you helped Oren in that race. That was pride. Also, I need you and others like you. Right? And he's just like, experience will come. Don't worry about it. Right? And he talks about trust. Right? He says to him, very well, we have no chance in the long term. Right? We have no chance in the long term. Every day brings us closer to a Nader victory, but we will make them pay dearly, and you can believe that, laddie. For that's Druss the Legend talking. Never mind the legend. That's the man who took on 5 assassins in a darkened alley. Don't build me up too high. because of that, right? All men have talents. Some build, some paint, some write, some fight. For me, it is different. I've always had a way with death, right? Notice he says with death, not killing, not fighting, not battling, um, not murder either, but he has always had a way with death, right? And it is very much from the very beginning when we first meet Druss, right? We learn that he is very much about resisting death. He resists death. He refuses to meet death on death's terms. He's going to make his own terms with death. And let's take a look at this interesting word choice here. This is on 190. You lie, I can see it in your eyes, she said. You see nothing that I do not want you to see, or anyone else. You are safe with me, Sesa. Have I not told you? But allow me to say that for a woman who does not seek the company of men, you make a very spectacular entrance. Where are your trousers, right? So this is our first glimpse into Sesa. She's a complicated character. There's some really interesting things that get revealed about her much, much later on. And, it's just something that I feel like we don't really get who and what she's about till the very end. And when we do get it, so much clicks into place that when you go back and look at some of the things she does and says, it all comes together beautifully. And you realize Gemmell had a point with her and it wasn't just using her as some sort of weird, flippant female interest or something of some sort, right? Or some sort of, well, whatever. Anyway, he says, I don't trust anybody. Sometimes you do just like every other woman I know. Is that a compliment, O Master? I think not. And what does it mean? After all, I am a woman. How do you expect me to act? There you go again. Let's get back to trust. What made you ask? You won't say why you came, and then you lie about leaving. Do you think I'm a complete fool? You have no intention of quitting this doomed pile of rock. You will stay to the end. Right? And she's like, it's written all over your face, but don't worry, I won't let on to Jorak or any of the others. But don't count on me to stay. I have no intention of dying here. Right? And then he kind of stops because they're interrupted by Hogan, right? And when Hogan comes, she dislikes him immediately because he's tall, good looking, and seems to have his crap together, right? And she immediately dislikes him, right? And then he doesn't even give her the time of day. And of course, she's infuriated by this, right? And Hogan just doesn't get it. He's like, what do you mean? I'm a little confused, And I also like this where he talks about, like, I didn't let Oren win, right? He's actually good. And that's sort of the interesting thing about Oren is he's better than everybody gives him credit for. And he surprises people, right? And he's one of the most cowardly, and by definition, is capable of the most bravery. So he's a pretty cool character for the things that he does. And then he says, Bowman talks about her, right? And is like, you should have done those things. And he's like, I don't think that makes a great deal of sense. Why would she try to win my heart if she hates me? Right? And he's like, so that she can be in position to treat you with disdain. Do you know nothing about women? Right? I know enough. I also know I don't have time for this foolishness. Should I apologize to her, do you think? And let her know how slighted she was? My dear boy, your education has been sadly lacking, right? So much fun playing the dating game. Or not fun at all. It's rough. All right, over on this, we get this speech, right? Yes, there will be blood and havoc, torture and pain, and you will remember that too. But above all will be the sweet taste of life, and there is nothing like it, my lads. All right, we're on page 195. Right, life is nothing unless death has been faced down. In times to come, men will say, I wish I had been there with them. All right. And 96, you are standing at a moment frozen in history. The world will be changed when this battle is over. Either the Jedi will rise again or a new empire will dawn, right? You are men of history, right? And then he goes on and he says, by all the gods and demons of this world, I will tell you now, I do not intend to be beaten here either, right? And they start chanting, right? And this reminds me of that picture in that I posted at Classroom, and I'll post the the full thing, but there's a picture of Druss holding the axe up, and just imagine everybody behind him chanting, and he's looking out at all the Nader that are they're out waiting to storm the gate, right? And I gave it Deathwalker, as you said. He laughed, did he? He laughed and swore to have it. And my Lord Ulrich is a man who always fulfills his desires. Well, then we are two of a kind, right? He holds him in such contempt, right? And that's also part of raising morale, which Druss is very, very talented at, right? And then they start chanting Druss the Legend, right? And then over on 199, here's how to gain a loyal follower, right? And Olmec's commands were to be obeyed. Since that day, Keaton had spent every conscious moment serving the Nader Lord, right? And we learned all about him going to college, basically becoming an engineer, learning all the fundamentals, the loyalty that's built up. He owed his life to one man and dreamed nothing but serving him, right? We come back to the his siege engines, his designing. They lay it all out, and Ulrich had blanched with the final figure because it was going to be so expensive, but it was all worth it, right? And then so many tents, so many warriors, right? And they knew only that he was Druss, the captain of the axe, and that he held the Nader in contempt, right? Was there ever such a one, he said. He just looks old and tired to me, he said. I can't see why you regard him with such reverence. Oh, yes, you can, said Bowman. You are just being provocative as usual, my dear. But then that's the nature of your gender, right? It's going back to teasing about being a woman, right? And not being entirely clear in your motive, perhaps, right? And they have this interesting discussion about what Druss is like, right? And, he is the standard, an example, if you like, of how to kill people, right? No, that's not what I meant. Druss is every man who has refused to quit, to surrender when life offered no hope, to stand aside when the alternative was to die. He is a man who has shown other men there is no such thing as guaranteed defeat. He lifts the spirit merely by being Druss and being seen to be Druss. Just words. The men are all the same. She's great, though. She gets right at the heart of things, right? Always lofty words. Would you sing the praise of the farmer who fought for years against failed crops and floods? No. But then it is the life of a man like Druss which inspires the farmers to battle on. Garbage. Arrogant garbage. The farmer cares nothing for warriors or war. And looking at him, right, he's a great example of this. He's a farmer. He doesn't really understand the killing and the violence, but he's here to protect his family, right? And Oren points out the fundamental problem with this, right? And he says, the simple fact that the vast majority of the troops here are farmers and they've all signed on for the duration of the war. And she's like, well, they're all fools. And he's like, we are all fools. War is ridiculous folly. And and you are right. Men love to prove themselves in combat. I don't know why, for I've never desired it in myself. I've never desired it myself, says Oren, right? But I've seen it too often in others. But even for me, Druss is, as Hogan describes him, an example. And she's like, why, right? I cannot put it into words, I'm afraid. Of course you can. Oren smiled and shook his head, right? And then he sort of says it, right? He says, there's a green leaf called Neptus, which when chewed, it will relieve toothache or head pain. No one knows why, it just does. I suppose Druss is like that. When he is around, fear seems to fade. That's the best I can do to explain. He doesn't have that effect on me, said Seiza. Although, at the end of the text, we should probably come and revisit this remark by Seiza again in this period, this section. And if you have finished the text, which kudos to you for doing so, bravo, congratulations, that's great. If you have finished the text, you know exactly what I'm talking about with this. Perfectly planned. All right. But the essence of Druss is that he alleviates fear. He inspires people. He shows you that no odds are insurmountable, that you should never just roll over and die, never give up. Right. And there's no point in giving up. And there is no such thing as a lost or hopeless cause. And that's sort of what his legend is built on, too. I mean, think about it. His wife was sold into slavery, and he has to hunt her down And it takes him years to find her. Years, right? But he never gives up. And in the end, he beats all odds. Great book, by the way. You should read it. If you enjoy this, you would really like the First Chronicles of Drust the Legend. It tells the whole story. Legend of Deathwalker, maybe, is the second one. Actually, I don't have to guess. It's right here. The Legend of Deathwalker. Yep, that would be the one that comes after the First Chronicles of Drust the Legend, then the Legend of Deathwalker. Those are chronologically the two books that will take you through all the story of Drust that comes before this. All right, on Musaf, Wall 2, several young culls were ordered to help fetch buckets. And this is just building a suspense because you know what's going on here, right? And then he wants water. Not exactly. Maybe clean water, not poisoned water. All right, but the strikes, right? And then let's take a look at, real quick here on 208. We have pledged our service to the Master of Delnock. You are the master, right? And then we have the apology, right? Strike you, you mean? No, kiss you, right? Like, oh, they're a mess, right? But they're also not a mess because they got way bigger problems. A little spat. I mean, they're looking at dying here, almost assuredly, right? And then Temple is born, right? This is a really exciting moment. This is where you see this sorcery element come through in Gemmell's writing. The elements of sword and sorcery are not exactly balanced, although when you read the text, you realize there isn't that much sword fighting going on. It does happen, and when it happens, it's fast and furious, it's intense, very pacey, right? But there's a lot of character development going on throughout the text. Let's see. Let's take a look at he knew fury, the barrier touched him with pain, right? Joy, freedom, and knowledge of life had come first, then pain and fury. Now he knew fear and gained the knowledge of evil, right? And he battles this demon, which we know is Nostakhan. Trust me, Did I skip? I might have skipped something here. No, I didn't. All right. And then over here on page 211, the price of failure, right? All the acolytes are dead, right? And Ulrich, pride. You have lost nothing. You have merely been beaten by a stronger enemy. Right? Ulrich is not this bloodthirsty savage that you think he might be. He's calculating, he's intelligent, he's a good leader. All the things that Druss has said about him are true, right? Rest yourself and take no risk, Shaman. I order it. I will obey. I know that. I do not wish you to die. Will they come for you? And he's like, no, they have stupid ideas of honor. He's like, well, then good. You can rest up and then go get them later. And then, why are you doing this to me? He asked. Because I must. I will die. No will live in all of us. Why must you kill me? I'm truly sorry. Right? And then everybody sort of gets reabsorbed, right? And Temple has to die, right? In that moment. And Temple's not exactly excited about that. And then let's skip over to page 216. Added to that, I have the 30 and the knowledge, and their knowledge is second to none. But even more important, if I have to die at this forsaken place, it will not be as a bystander. I shall control my own fate, which is exactly what Druss wants to do too. He wants to die and choose his place to die, right? And I think that's one of the most important connections they can make. And he says to Druss, nobody takes Vera anywhere she does not want to go. I say that's accurate, right? And then, I think their leader, Joachim, is an exception, right? That's a great moment to revisit at the end of the book. We talk about exceptions, right? And then we'll find Hogan and Orrin. This is the last night before the battle, so it calls for a party. Live while you can, right? Live while you can. All right, let's take a look at chapter 20. Over here on page 219, an argument was swiftly ended by obey your husband, woman, he thundered, right? And Rec had winced at that, like, oh boy, she's going to tear him apart. And oddly, she listens. This is odd, yet Druss has a very strange effect on pretty much everyone around him, right? People want to please him, want to follow him, want to do what he says. It's an interesting effect. Of course, some people are sort of natural born leaders, I guess, and somebody like Dross, who has so much experience and wisdom and knowledge, we tend to allow them to do things like this to us sometimes, where we just sort of listen to them. This is awesome, this part where, like the angry scream of some vast, inchoate monster, thought Rec, as the familiar sensation of fear gripped his belly, right? Like, it's not even fully formed, these like war cries. There's beastie, right? It's awesome. You don't really see that word very often. It's pretty sweet to see that. And then any last words of advice, right? Yes, live, right? But that connects to his speech earlier, where he talks about how you are going to be closer to death than ever before, and all life will take a greater meaning because of that. And then let's take a look here. We Hogan with his 5,000, and then it switches to the Nader perspective, right? And we get the Nader perspective for a while, right up until the point where they die, right? Until our Nader character is killed, right? Maybe you'd win the horses, Deathwalker, a pot-bellied old man without a shield, right? And then it's horrific and total, right? Just killing everybody to a man. It's brutal. On 220, Superdai, and then looking up, he saw a black-garbed figure with a white beard cleaving his way forward, a terrible axe of silver steel in his blood-splashed hands, right? And then just the moment, right? The moment of death where Superdai's chest gets cleaved by the axe, right? It's just another one to fall before Dross's axe, right? And he wished he had not cheered so loudly. He wished, and then he's done. Is it? Okay. I think I might have skipped. And then he wished, not cheered so loudly. And then Druss hacked at the rope, and then we go back to the Draenei, right? And not bad for a farmer. That's pretty good. Good moment there. And then let's see. Yeah, we realize that he's an old man, and that paint a pessimistic picture. And she lets us know what Druss is old, right? He is past his prime. He's not there. If you want him to survive, make sure he rests the day. You'll never stand for it. He may get through tomorrow, right? And an hour before dawn tomorrow, I want a hot tub up in his room there. I'll massage him again before the battle begins. Old and tired, whose deeds you mocked. Don't be a fool, Hogan. I'm spending this time with him because he is old and tired. And though I do not hold him in the same reverence as you, I can see that the men need him. Hundreds of little boys playing at soldiers to impress an old man who thrives on war. I will see that he rests after tomorrow, said Hogan, if he survives, right? Things are always grim. Things are always grim. The mood is just constantly a downer. All right, over here, a great moment where Rex talks about him as a political man, right? Brooklyn, right? He's a political animal, and he cares nothing for morality, honor, or pride, but he has his place and his uses, right? Also something worth coming back to and thinking about. And when you think about people who are like this, these political animals that care nothing for honor and morality or pride, I think if you wanted to encapsulate what this book is driving at is that you have to have morality, honor, and pride. And without them, what are you? And you might just be nothing but an animal. Or worse yet, a political animal. To purposely eschew all of that, to know how to do those things yet refuse them. All right, let's skip ahead a bit here. Oh, sure. How about we take a look at Druss remembering his. Finally, he had found his wife in an eastern palace and had wept, for without her he had always been only a half a man. She had alone had made him human, stilling for a while the dark side of his nature, making him whole, showing him the beauty in a field of flowers, where he looked for perfection in a blade of steel. She used to wash his hair and stroke the tension from his neck and the anger from his heart. Now she was gone, and the world was empty, a shifting blur of shimmering gray, where once there had been colors of dazzling brightness. Right? Seiza sat in the open air, hugging her knees. Had anyone approached, he could not have seen where the rain ended, and her tears began. So, let's go take a look at chapter 22. Over here. They knew, he said softly. Manner of men are they? I don't know, but they fight like devils, and at the moment, that's all I care about. They knew, said Druss again, shaking his. So, how much more do they know? Right? And that's the eeriness, right? How much do the 30 know, right? The future and the variance, right, is not an easy concept to explain, but I will try, right? And he tries to explain it, and he said, what's the point of it all? Your talent, I mean. Now that is an excellent question, one which I have pondered for many years. Will we die tomorrow? How can I tell? But all men must die eventually. The gift of life is not permanent. You say gift. This implies a giver, right? And unlike that not so fantastic book with the really lazy ending, The Giver, we're talking about like the giver, and they say, yeah, it does. And they talk about the source, right? The source is the giver. This is like the all powerful, the almighty, the capital G God, right? In what way? And then on 248, what emotions did you feel as Nader fell back? It's hard to describe. Strong? Filled with power? Glad to be alive? Exultant? Offered Antime. I suppose so. Why do you ask? This is Eldabar, Wall 1. Do you know the meaning of the word Eldabar? It's like, well, is it not just a word? Right? It's such a great answer. Because all words have meaning and all names have meaning, and there's a depth to all of it, right? No, it is far more. Eagle, who built this fortress, had names carved on every wall. Eldabar means exultation. It is there that the enemy is first met. It is there he is seen to be a man. Power flows in the veins of the defenders. The enemy falls back against the weight of our swords and the strength of our arms. We feel as heroes should. The thrill of battle and the call of our heritage. We are exultant. Eagle knew the hearts of men. I wonder, did he know the future? Because they're all wondering if he knows the future, right? And so it's a great parallel, right? So it's like, I don't know any more than Eagle did, just because Eagle knew the hearts of people and knew what was important to them. What do the other names mean? Antime shrugged. That is for another day. It is not good luck to talk of Musif while we shelter under the protection of Eldabar, right? Antaheim leaned back into the wall and closed his eyes, listening to the rain and the howling wind. Musif, the wall of despair. Where strength has not been great enough to hold Eldabar, how can Musif be held? If we cannot hold Eldabar, we cannot hold Musif. Fear will gnaw at our vitals. Many of our friends will have died at Eldabar, and once more we will see in our minds the laughing faces. We will want to join them. Musif is the test, and we will not hold. We will fall back to Khania, the wall of renewed hope. We did not die on Musif, and Khania is a narrower fighting place. And anyway, are there not 3 more walls? The Nader can no longer use their ballista here, so that is something, is it not? In any case, did we not always know we would lose a few walls. And then Sumitos, the wall of desperation, will follow. We are tired, mortally weary. We fight now by instinct, mechanically, and while only the very best will be left to stem the savage tide. And then Voltaire, wall 5, is the wall of serenity. Now we have come to terms with mortality. We accept the inevitability of our deaths and find in ourselves depths of courage we would not have believed possible. The humor will begin again, and each will be a brother to each other man. We will have stood together against the common enemy, shield to shield, and we will have made him suffer. Time will pass on this wall more slowly. We will savor our senses if we have discovered them anew. The stars will become jewels of beauty we never saw before, and friendship a sweetness never previously tasted. And finally, Geddon, the wall of death. I shall not see Geddon, thought Anteheim. And he slept. Which means he must die at the latest at Voltaire, right? So perhaps he makes it to exaltation. But he knows he's never going to see Geddon, the wall of death. So when he travels the ways of the mist, he must have never seen himself beyond that point in any of the paths he followed. Right? And the description of the walls is so important. It mirrors so much of what goes on in our own lives, our own struggles, deal with our deepest fears and our own deaths. We have to understand what our own death is going to be like and the death of those we may know. These are all sort of like the phases of grief in a way that we have to go through, and that they're mirrored so nicely by these walls. And I tell you this, tomorrow his veterans will come, right? That's not good because you know the veterans are going to fight better than the culls. Let's see. And Rek is like, now I must meet this council. We're on page 250. And then over on 251, right? Yeah. Evacuation made personal. Right here, first wall, fourth wall. What is the difference? All the more time to put this in strong enough to hold the native for years, right? Over here, Horeb had a saying that matched these men. In any broth, the scum always rises to the top, right? And, the scum of the bureaucrats, the scum of the political animals always trying to eschew morality, eschew honor, and living life for only personal gain and no sense of what's right and wrong, and not even thinking that what they're doing is ever so wrong that it shouldn't be done. And then there's the meal between enemies, right? I was grieved to hear of your son. I have no sons, but I know how hard it is for a man to lose a loved one. It was a cruel blow. He's a good boy, but then all life is cruel, is it not? A man must rise above grief. You're a great man, Druss. I am sorry you are to die here. Yes, it would be nice to live forever. On the other hand, I am beginning to slow down. Some of your men have been getting damn close to marking me. It's an embarrassment. Right? He talks about the prize, and he's like, listen, don't tell my men. They're going to turn me in for it, right? Do you believe you can stop me? Tell me truly, right? Isn't this great? This is, here it is again, right? I would like to have served under you. I have admired you for years. I have served many kings. Some were weak, others willful, many were fine men. But you have the mark of greatness. I think you will get what you want eventually, but not while I live. I'll not live long, Druss. We have a shaman who knows these things. He told me that he saw you standing at the gates of Wall 4. I believe it is called Sumitos, I believe it is called, and the grinning skull of death floated above your shoulders. He's like, death floats where I stand, Ulrich. I am he who walks with death. Right? Does your shaman not know your own legends? I may choose to die at Sumitos. I may choose to die at Musif. But wherever I choose to die, know this: as I walk into the valley of shadows, I will take with me more than a few nadir for company on the road. They'll be proud to walk with you. Go in peace. Ulrich is just such not the bloodthirsty savage, right? Gemmell does a fantastic job because it's this bloodthirsty horde they're facing, and yet it's not a bloodthirsty monster at the helm of the horde, is it, at all? Which is just such a beautiful contrast to this whole thing. And I'm going to stop there for now, and I will pick up with chapter 23 next time I talk about things.